Good morning, everyone. Happy November 1 and happy fall. Thank you for joining us today for our Caring for the Caregivers event. This is actually our series number 2 for this year. I'm Dellann Elliott Mydland, the president and CEO of the End Brain Cancer Initiative. And today we hope to be able to join you and recognize you, the caregiver. We know how important your job is. We also know how hard it is and tough. And so any resources or information that we can provide to you, that is our purpose for today. So with that, maybe we should start. That is my contact information right there. And if you need more information, if we can help you in any way as a caregiver, please let us know. You can contact me directly. There is my email address. And you also have my cell phone number on your screen. Thank you. So today we're going to learn together. We're going to be inspired. And we're going to share and we're going to ask questions. And please feel free to definitely do that. Share and ask questions. You're on mute, but you do have the ability to unmute yourself. You can ask a question during a presentation or at the end of a presentation. You can also write in your comment box down below your question or your comment. Please, this is an interactive session, so please know that you can do that. And today we all will gain tools and resources that we can go forward to use as caregivers. We do know as a caregiver that the better you take care of yourself and the more information and resources that you have, you're able to take care of your loved one, your friend, your patient better. So thank you. And of course, we wouldn't be able to do any of our patient disease education programming or caregiver programming or our services, essentially our mission, including these webinars, without support. So I'd like to thank our presenting sponsors for this series today. It's Novacure, thank you Novacure, as well as Fyhrie. They have really helped us with our education programming in the past, and we really appreciate our partnership. We also have supporting sponsors for this event today, and that is the University of Florida Health, Jess Van Garsse Meditation, Great Purpose Productions, and WIM Social. Thank you. So as we know, November is National Caregivers Family Month. I learned this morning also that November is actually Lung Cancer Awareness Month. And I just bring that up only because, lung cancer can metastasize to the brain. I foresee in the future the End Brain Cancer Initiative putting together a disease education program for metastasized lung cancer to the brain. And I just bring that up because if you or a loved one or anyone you know of is diagnosed with lung cancer that has metastasized to the brain, we can help. So please know that. Family caregivers, they make tremendous sacrifices to be there for the people who need and cherish them the most. This month, we honor their selfless love and courage. In the U.S., an estimated 53 million people provide care to an adult or to a child who needs their care. And one of the things that you should be aware of, we know that a lot of times that when you are put in the position to be a caregiver, you either need to give up your job or you need to decrease your hours and work part-time, or the other financial burdens that go along with caregiving. And you should know that our federal government is acknowledging that. There is a bill right now that is in the Senate and the House of Representatives. We got to start somewhere, right? So it will make the caregiver eligible for a tax credit up to $5,000 for 30% of the cost of long-term care expenses that exceed $2,000 in a taxable year. So one of the things that our federal government needs to hear from you is they need to know how you feel about this. on your screen is a QR code that you can either scan, and it's going to take you to our website, to a page that has more information about this bill. And literally what they want to hear from you is your story, short and concise, what you think about this credit for care, for Caring Act, and how perhaps they could additionally help the caregiver. So it's not ready, of course, to vote on that kind of thing. It's still being developed. So they do want to hear from you, and now is the time. Thank you. So as you know, we are a 501c3 nonprofit patient organization. So we rely on individual donors to gift us dollars to help us carry out our mission, our programs, and our services. There's all kinds of ways you can give. QR codes are really fantastic right now, but of course you can go to our website, endbraincancer.org, anytime to donate. And you can even text EBCI to 366-283 anytime also to support our efforts. And if you know a corporation that is looking to support work in the healthcare area, you can certainly introduce them to the End Brain Cancer Initiative, or you can, text us, you can email us, they can get a hold of us. Corporate sponsors really allow us to do a lot of our work that we do every day. You can also start a named fund with the End Brain Cancer Initiative. You can also host a house party. Those are kind of fun. And it's a fundraiser house party. Those are really fun. So things to consider. So we've been doing a caregivers self-care series for maybe 3 years now, maybe 4 actually. And so what we've been doing is making videos of those presentations, those online events. And we've started making individual videos as well of each individual presenter. So I want you to know there's a wealth of information on our website via our own YouTube channel. So literally you just go to meetings and events, and then you go to National Caregiver events. And these videos are broken out by year. So just know that those are great resources for you to utilize as well. Earlier, we were going to have Shreya in our office present and show just really quick some of the resources that are on our website for both caregivers as well as patients. And Shreya is not available. So Elise from our team has offered to take over this spot. Thank you, Elise. Elise works with the End Brain Cancer Initiative, and she manages our disease education mobile app, but she also writes our press releases. She also she created this presentation deck that you're seeing. So she works on graphics, she works on presentations, she works with helping us with programming as far as keeping us organized on programming and services and patient disease education that we're going to deliver on X date and what we're going to do with it and all of that. So she's very key to our organization. Thank you, Elise. You have the floor.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Elise with the End Brain Cancer Initiative. I just wanted to talk to you briefly about the resources we have on our website for caregivers and patients. So first, in our Caregiver Resource Center, which you can access at endbraincancer.org/caregiver-resources, or if you go to endbraincancer.org and you see resources in the top menu, you'll see Caregiver Resource Center under that. And it has information about family caregiving, books, videos, podcasts, mental health resources, financial and legal issues, technology for caregivers. There's really just a wealth of information on there. We also have our Patient Resource Center, and there's a bunch of information on there as well. Medicare coverage, top 10 questions to ask your doctor, strategies for coping, information about chemo brain, and a lot more on there as well. And again, that's if you go to endbraincancer.org, look for resources in the top menu, and you'll see that Patient Resource Center as well. We also have pediatric resources, and there's a lot more information on our website as well. So it's a great resource to explore, and we continue updating it as well.
Thank you, Elise. That's awesome. We're always seeking information, of course, from patients and from caregivers. So if there is information that maybe you don't see, or you'd like us to create a very specific fact sheet or disease education program on a certain topic, please let me know, because that's the kind of thing that helps us create more content that's relevant for you. Can't do it all, but we certainly can do some. So help us out. If you feel like it, just let me know. Thank you. Thanks, Elise. Appreciate it. If anyone has any questions for Elise as well, her email address is Elise, Elise, at endbraincancer.org. Feel free to email her with any of your questions or comments or other things you'd also like to see on our website. I want to introduce you to our keynote speaker right now. Major Tim Gregory is going to talk to us about SCANXIETY. I can't even say the word, right? I stumble on it a little bit. But if I could, I'd like to introduce you by way of his bio. He began his Army career with an enlistment into the Pennsylvania Army National Guard in 2009, and then concurrently attended his undergraduate studies at the University of Pittsburgh. He was commissioned to attend USUHS in 2013. What that stands for is Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences. It is a federal health professions academy and the only federally administered medical and health sciences school in the United States. It's located in Bethesda, Maryland, on the grounds of the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. And the school's mission is to support the health and well-being of the military community, educate and develop uniformed health professionals, scientists, and leaders, conduct military relevant research, and provide operational support to units around the world. USUHS is also known as America's Medical School, or West Point for doctors. That's awesome. He was inspired during his rotations to both neurology and oncology. Graduating in 2017, he proceeded to Madigan Army Medical Center. So Madigan Army Medical Center, for those of you joining us across the United States as well as worldwide, we have people today from India and Sri Lanka, Canada, among other places, of course, and those of you in the United States, is located near Tacoma, Washington, at Lewis McChord. Through outstanding mentorship and generous support from Army leadership, he went on to a 2-year neuro-oncology fellowship at MD Anderson Cancer in Houston, Texas, after which he received orders to return as faculty at Madigan Medical Center. While building up a brand new brain tumor program at Madigan with a clinical research focus, Major Gregory's primary academic interest is medical students and resident education. When off duty, he enjoys time with his family, hiking, and music. Welcome, Major Gregory.
Thank you so much, Dellann. It's great to be here with you all today. I really appreciate the kind invitation, and it's great to be a part of this End Brain Cancer Initiative team. So thank you for that. This is honestly a little bit of new territory for me. I'm a full-time practicing neuro-oncologist, but my last few years of being in practice has really sparked an interest and a lot of passion for this topic. I appreciate your pronunciation of SCANXIETY. SCANXIETY is totally fine, but it's a very intuitive, kind of cute name for a very heavy topic that I'm very passionate about helping my patients navigate through. So I didn't really plan to speak continuously for a whole hour. I presume I probably have a lot to learn from everybody here, as much as, or maybe even more so than you would learn from me. So hopefully, nobody feels on the spot, but is comfortable if they have any perspective or experience to share as well. That's very welcome throughout this talk. And just one other quick housekeeping point that I wanted to make before I dive right in is, this can be a pretty heavy topic. Anxiety's in the name. And so if this can bring up any feelings of anxiety or post-traumatic stress for anybody that's walked through this, that's not my intent. I want to be fully sensitive to that and just kind of bring that into the space as just a very open and real talk. But hopefully we'll all leave with some positive energy throughout as we get through this. So here's my very brief about me slide. Thank you so much for including some biographical information. This wasn't to make anything about me at all, but just to make sure you know who's talking to you. I'm Tim Gregory, originally from Pennsylvania and proudly working full-time at this Army hospital and loving my time in the Pacific Northwest. It's beautiful out here. As Dellann mentioned, my main population is the active duty dependent retiree population here, full-time in the Army system. And then I also do 1 day per week seeing civilians out in Seattle to keep my practice pretty broad. And that's been awesome as well. So the Army was very gracious. They let me train at MD Anderson Cancer Center for 2 years. That's where I did neuro-oncology fellowship. And here's just a little picture of my co-fellows and I down in Houston from that time. And then one other thing to just get out there real quick. So the other picture here is of me and my sister. So sometimes people like to ask, why go into neurology? Why did you get into neuro-oncology? And so this is my brief moment of vulnerability. I'll just kind of get this out there. I could probably talk a lot about why I went into neurology, but the truth is it's because of my sister. She is pictured here at my medical school graduation, not too long before she passed from Huntington's disease. If anybody knows, that's one of these difficult neurologic conditions that, can start gradually and progress and unfortunately is incurable. So my heart is with those who have been affected by such neurologic conditions and have, as caregivers, we bear witness to this. And I recognize that it's tough on the whole family, but, despite tragedy, if anything good can come from such things, that's the reason why I'm here. And I'm happy to kind of share that side of my personal journey as well. So we'll jump right in here to the topic of SCANXIETY. Just a basic outline. I'll try to get through a little introduction to this topic, just kind of define it, give you some framework for the different facets that I see are relevant. And then I'm very passionate about sharing some perspective on how to discuss and look at prognosis. I think that really is an important piece of this topic. And so I try to counsel my patients in certain ways, and we'll spend a few minutes talking about that. And then really just kind of leaning into differentiating the things that we can and cannot control. And hopefully there will be just some helpful tips built into this topic that I'm sure everybody here is probably familiar with on some level. So jumping right into it, you've probably gleaned now that SCANXIETY refers to the distress or maybe some uneasiness that comes with waiting for cancer scan results. There have been only a few eloquent attempts in the literature to really address this topic. And as it happens, none of them really have been focused on the brain tumor population that I'm aware of. It looks like this term, I didn't make it up, by the way. I think this term arose in a Time magazine article. A patient was kind of describing in an editorial about their personal experience with cancer. But this was a nice review article. They kind of had a good starting point for it. So feel free to make reference of it. One of my takeaways is that there's no universally accepted definition. And frankly, I'd say this is probably an understudied area, and especially in the brain tumor world. So one of my big goals is to at least kind of help normalize this topic and bring a little bit more awareness, make it a little bit more of a surface level discussion that we can better consciously deal with. Because I think I see it very prevalently in my clinic, and I think it's very relevant to the patients that I take care of. So there's two major sides to this topic. Of course, there's the very real and tangible physical side of the scan procedure itself. Anybody who's been a patient or walked beside a patient knows these are MRI scans are not a fun procedure. It's long, loud, uncomfortable, and that really shouldn't be overlooked. Honestly, it can be bad enough that I'm happy to hand out some relaxing medications for my patients, and that's something that we don't want to minimize. But there's kind of a deeper aspect here that is more the focus of this concept is, the iceberg under the rest of the surface is this existential part of SCANXIETY. the fears of, what does the diagnosis mean? What if there are some changes on the scan? And all the feelings that can bring back. We know that the cancer diagnosis itself can bring about very real PTSD symptoms for some and can very much affect daily life. They've looked at this, kind of tried to quantify it in the breast cancer population, at least, that we have some data where a majority of patients feel this anxiety related to their imaging, and a lot of them, more than half were negatively impacted in just their daily life as far as concentration and ability to do their daily things. So this can be a potentially disruptive thing, and that's why I find it so important to just address it head on with my patients. So with that, I'll try to give a little bit of breathing room, and I'm curious if anybody here, would have any comments if they've experienced this, if this is something that's new or, old news to everybody. I'm seeing a little affirmative there.
Can I ask, Mary, would you please unmute yourself?
Sure.
If I could, I'd like to jump in, Mary. I raised my hand as well, and so did other people. Could you take a moment and tell us what it feels like for you as the caregiver?
Right. Well, Monday is we get an MRI every 2 months. My husband has glioblastoma, and it has not recurred yet. So every 2 months, we get very nervous about, is it going to be there now? Because following statistics, it could be. Doesn't really have any symptoms yet. If I look at things, maybe every time he misses a word or something, I'm going, oh, is it back? And he's thinking the same thing. So and then after we get the scan, then we're usually okay for a few days, and then we start to worry about the next one and the what ifs and what will we do. And so
It's a big burden to bear. Thank you for sharing your experience with that.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to share? You kind of go into those MRI scans holding your breath, and frankly, it can be terrifying. And I know as a caregiver, you're trying to be strong for your loved one, but you're trying to be strong for yourself as well. And that's understood completely. It's almost as if we do have a speaker coming up who might be able to help us with some of this, what we feel. She's going to be talking to us. Her name's Jess Van Garsse, but she's going to be talking to us. I don't want to get off topic, but she's going to be talking to us about very simple caregiver meditation that you can do as a caregiver. And it's different than the standard meditation that many people have been taught over the years. So I'm looking forward to learning from her, to be honest, because, obviously it's a real thing, not just for the patient, but also for the caregiver, patient's caregiver, and their family. So anyway, what I appreciate, Major Gregory, is that you're bringing this forward, you're acknowledging it, that yes, this is a real thing that patients and caregivers feel. And, the first way of trying to make anything better is to acknowledge it. So I appreciate you being able to speak to our group today. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's so well said. And it's great to hear the caregiver perspective here too, because I think, while we're trying to kind of normalize it, also want to express that the patients are definitely not alone in this. The family, the caregiver, we're all, even as the provider here, we're very focused on developing the best possible treatment plan. And you can bet I'm holding my breath too when I'm reading my patient's scan and I want to see good news, so thank you for, this dialogue here.
Sure.
So moving right into a few other things that are on my mind. So the next big point, I think that, and here's the elephant in the room, when we're talking to our patients as the doctor in the room, what I think a lot of people are wanting to bring up, and maybe we're all kind of bad at just being transparent about this is the big question of when will my tumor come back? What are we dealing with? What are the odds? And there's some literature on this. This is actually a really interesting book if anybody likes to do extra reading on this kind of thing. This Christakis book called Death Foretold. But, there's some really good literature on how, it's only a minority of patients that actually feel that prognosis discussions are adequately addressed in these contexts. And I'm sure there's very valid reasons for that. You're all aware that a lot of information is covered in these types of visits with your oncologist. And, personally, I get very focused on the treatment planning, managing side effects, coordinating care, the whole gambit. So it might not naturally just come up, organically, but I do think it's really important to check in periodically. So I try to at least just check in, especially with my newer patients, and just say, hey, I'm here to tell you as much or as little about your prognosis as you would like. And the worry here, this is not to be making light of the situation at all, with these memes or anything, but what I fear happens is, the patient might leave the visit and get home and say, I wish I asked more about these, harder questions. And they decide to Google things. And, Google is an awesome tool, AI, all the things that we're seeing emerge. But I do think that turning to Dr. Google without understanding some of the interpretation of, some of the context of the prognosis numbers that people discuss online can maybe lead to more distress and anxiety. So that's kind of spurred a lot of my thinking and how I counsel my patients. There's, so many well-intentioned people talking in forums and sharing their experience, but at the same time, it's so hard to apply single data points that you read online to the individual in front of you. So this is
Major Gregory.
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell here, but it looks like someone is raising their hand. Can
I'm
we
so sorry
pause
if I've
just
missed that.
No, it's okay. Can we pause for a moment
Yeah,
to find out? Carol, it looks like on your screen your hand is raised. Did you have a question?
No, that was just from prior. Sorry, acknowledging about the SCANXIETY. Not to interrupt the continued discussion. This is just such a great discussion. I'd just like to add the one piece that was helpful when I went through this journey with my late husband was you as the physician educating us, like as you're reading the MRI, here's how I read it, here's what I see. That helped take out a lot of anxiety as I became more educated myself in the understanding of what you were seeing. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, that's a huge part of the visit, I think, is making sure, we're in alignment with what we're seeing. And yeah, thank you. Sorry, I missed your hand. Please, nobody hesitate to interject. Very, very open discussion here. So what I, have become really passionate about with this part of the topic is just trying to help my patients understand how we as clinicians think about these numbers, where they come from. So if you can bear with me for just one moment, this is the most technical part of my talk, but I think this lends quite a bit to the topic of the SCANXIETY. So when we're talking about survival or how long it takes for a tumor to progress, the number that you'll find on Google is usually the median survival taken from a large sample of people. Usually we have a big data set of people under study. And on the left, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but on the left, this is just a generic version of a survival curve. Okay, so at time 0, 100% of the people doing well, no events have happened. And as time progresses, the curve falls down as, events happen, whether that's progression of tumor, some of these curves measure death or other things. And so, that's just kind of the natural way that we gather these statistics. We like to see the curve staying as flat as possible. So this is a real world example for a lower grade tumor. We're comparing 2 different treatment arms, and clearly the upper curve here, less people are falling down on the curve, less events are happening, and that's what we like to see. The number that you might get on Google then, what's talked about is that median. So we get that from, we take the time where 50% of people have had that event, and we can kind of draw a line over to it, and that's the time that gets reported as that median survival. So when we see a scary number like that, it has to be taken into context because yes, that's a useful number in isolation, but in reality, we have some patients on the the lower time frame side of the curve, the bad side of the curve, and whatever reason, there can be plenty of factors like poor baseline health, misdiagnosis at the outset, plenty of things. But then on the other side of the median are all these people that can do quite well. And that's the truth for some of our, even our aggressive tumors like glioblastoma. Sometimes we have that flatter part of the curve, 20+% of people doing well for, sometimes unforeseen reasons. And so when I'm meeting a healthy person for the first time at the beginning of their journey, this is just to kind of highlight, the difficulty of applying, the numbers that you get on Google and just saying, here's how this is going to apply to you. It's actually really difficult to predict in some cases. And so I think it's a really important discussion. If you don't talk about this with your oncology team, don't be afraid to bring it up because it might not come up organically, but it's our job really to try to educate people and help them understand this aspect of it. And I think probably the biggest part of my job is, really doing everything in my power to push to that good side of the curve. There's things that we know are going to get you onto the better side of the curve. And, that's the focus of what I, as an oncologist, see I should be doing. Trying to advance. Here we go. So that brings me to kind of another part of this discussion about, trying to find that zone of things that we can control and then things that are out of our control. You might be familiar with this as an entire field of therapy called dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT. But I think it's a really powerful tool to help frame some of these SCANXIETY concepts. So it's all about trying to be mindful of things that can't be changed, so maybe it's a waste of energy to spend a lot of time focusing there versus identifying the things that can be changed. And therefore, if we do really deliberately frame our efforts around that, that can be better use of our time. So I just kind of brainstormed a little bit about this in this context of SCANXIETY, and I'll be really curious if anybody else can think of any, but my examples of things that we really can't control. So we can't change the past. We can't change things that have already happened, like the cancer diagnosis. We're all bound by certain laws of physics and nature, like our finite human lifespan and the state of scientific progress. At any given moment, there's a lot of effort going into progressing our field, but in any given moment, we're just kind of bound by the current state of things. And that's something that, personally, I can lose a lot of sleep about at night if I don't try to let go, to the best of my ability there. The things that are, modifiable in this framework, things like, showing up for your visits, being really engaged with your healthcare team, asking all the questions that you need and advocating. And, for all of us, no matter what our health status, we can try to be as in control of our diet and, how we take care of our bodies as possible. Those are just some basic examples. And that might be more difficult for some. I recognize fatigue and, some of the physical limitations that we deal with, but still I try to keep my patients as active as possible and pushing through from this standpoint. And then, I just, as far as mindset and priorities go, I get a lot of inspiration from my patients that I see them taking these very deliberate steps in their life, cognizant of time constraints and, trying to figure out how to spend their time and their money, their relationships, everything. And so I think seeing this mindfulness in action has just been a really powerful force that I think can make a big difference in the category of things that we can modify. So just curious, not to put anybody on the spot, but does anybody else have any examples of things they've had to either let go of or things that they've been able to really focus on that have been helpful?
One of the things that I would say that we see a lot of, and we know it's not a good thing, is caregivers giving up on some of their social activities, right? So they say no more often to different invitations with their friends or whomever or family because they feel that they can't get out of the house as a caregiver. They need to be there caregiving.
That's such a great point. Never want to overlook the needs of the caregiver, and the potential for burnout there is very real. So another area to definitely take as much control of as we can.
It looks like Wendy has a question. Wendy, would you want to unmute yourself? Hi, Wendy. I see another Hi, Wendy. Did you have a question?
Sorry, I'm delayed. I was going to make a point when he showed the graph of the.
Yes, we can go
yes.
back.
That was just, my husband was diagnosed with glioblastoma in 2009. So he is a 15, 16-year survivor. And we were told he would die in 12 months. And so, and it did come back, I guess, 3 years after. But then the MRIs have been stable. And so that initial prognosis caused great duress, obviously within our family, but we are, 15 years later,
Wow.
still going along. There's lots of problems. I don't think we fully realized the extent of radiation damage and chemotherapy and 2 craniotomies. So he has significant limitations, but he's still alive. So.
Wendy, thank you for sharing. And remind us of your husband's name.
Carl.
What was it?
Carl?
Carl, that's right. A 15-year survivor is just quite amazing. And then I think about that as the patient, but I think about that as you, as the caregiver. That is amazing long time to be a caregiver. And so thank you to you for your love and stamina, right?
Well, I run ultras. There you go. I'll go out the door.
Well, there you go. Exactly. So what are you doing? So what are you doing to take care of you, the caregiver? What else?
I run a lot.
That's good.
So, and I did stop teaching, because it was just too hard to balance those things. When he was first diagnosed, I guess I was 52. I run a lot. I'm a caregiver. I have friendships. I meditated, the yoga. It has been difficult because I can't travel, and both my parents were ill and died in the last 2 years and don't live here. They live in the north in the Yukon. Mm-hmm. So I muddle along, but after 15 years, it's hard.
Well, thank you for sharing. And, truthfully, thank you for taking care of yourself.
Yeah. So I feel an anomaly in some ways because he's lived so long, but it also poses other challenges.
Yes. Yeah, survivorship challenges. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing, Wendy. We could have another conversation about that sometime if you wanted.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. You know how to find me, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, cool. There are several hands up. If that's okay, can we get to those questions? Giles, you're on mute. Could I have you unmute yourselves and ask your question?
Hi, this relates to the next slide. My partner, she has an astrocytoma in her right frontal lobe. On the modifiable section, diet, activity, mindset. Motivation is...
Major Gregory, can you hear them? I think he's talking.
Cut out there.
Yeah, it is cutting out. Would you be able to repeat your question, please? I wondered if he was asking about motivation of the patient as a caregiver. Maybe what can one do to motivate the patient as far as activity?
That's the very real, thing that we face. Sometimes the neurologic deficits can really make changes there. While there's not a very, just one size fits all easy answer, we'll kind of cover a little bit of this in some of the next slides as far as let's make sure we're getting the right ancillary services on board and, making the most of everything to navigate those deficits.
Thank you.
If there's another element to the question that you'd like to raise, we can definitely circle back, or feel free to type it into the chat if the connection is.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. I think Pat, you have your hand raised. If you would unmute yourself and ask Major Gregory your question or provide your comment, that would be wonderful.
It's a comment, and it's a comment related to caregiver taking care of themselves and my wife's mindset. As you know, Dellann, and Major Gregory knows, but not everybody. My wife was diagnosed in 2018. She lived 4.5 years, and she had the view that I needed to get out of the house periodically, go someplace. Her sisters would take care of her. So I've played all the golf courses in Washington State that I wanted to play, because she would send me for 2 to 3 days about every 2 to 3 months so that I could recharge and go back to being the sole caregiver, and her sisters would go home. So she had an unbelievable mindset. Her priorities were great. And I think that helped prolong her life because of her belief. And one other item I wanted to comment on, I've heard many people talk back to an earlier comment on SCANXIETY. The ability to have the scan and see the results the same day is an awesome capability where it exists, and not have to wait 2 or 3 days and really increase that anxiety waiting to know what the results were. And oh, by the way, you get the results in the portal, so you're seeing it before the doctor gets to explain it to you, which is another thing that you got to be careful on how you read what comes over all these medical portals with not having a trained eye to look at. So just a few comments, no questions. Thank you.
That's such a great point, Pat. It's good to see you, by the way. And thank you for raising that. That's often, that can be overlooked in the clinical coordination side of things, but I very much support that point of let's have streamlined visits, quick turnaround with, interpreting and making a plan based on the imaging rather than leaving those things outstanding. I really hate when that happens for my patients.
Absolutely. Let's see. Could we go back to Giles? If you would unmute, you were frozen and we didn't hear your question. Would you mind repeating that?
I'm sorry, and we have a nice fire on in the house, so I don't know why I froze. Sorry. My 2 parts, I'll just be quick. One, Kathy has an astrocytoma in her right frontal lobe, which is the motivation center. So I find I am her motivation for everything. And it is very, very difficult to continue with that. Connected to that, and connected to the SCANXIETY, is with brain tumors, everything seems to be indicative of a new ailment, a new problem, everything. And so I have this hypervigilance, which is doing nothing but stressing me out. My partner is quite relaxed, in fact. So are the dogs. So some advice about that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very, very real component of it. You're doing very heavy duty work there as the second brain, the supplemental brain and the caregiver. And it's hard. It's hard to turn that off, being very aware of symptoms as they change. The goal of these scans, of course, is to stay ahead of changes and anticipate things. But truthfully, you have eyes on every day that we might not. So I do encourage my patients, don't hesitate. If there are new symptoms, you can always send in the good old MyChart message or whatever, and we can, either expedite things, triage things. If it's really a source of a lot of distress, it can help to step back a little bit and just take that caregiver break when needed. But yeah, these are great points that you raise. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Seeing a typed chat message here. What do you recommend or support for alternative care along with traditional medicine? I like this question a lot. I think beyond what we're talking about in the clinic visits, there can be a lot of other ways to approach things, and they're not always evidence-based. And so just having a really good discussion with your doctor if there's plans to do any kind of supplementation. I try to not be too controlling there, because I think that this is one area where patients can take just a little bit more control, and the caregivers can take a little bit more control, and just, that can be a psychological boost. And, there are, less studied things that can sometimes be helpful. I don't want to get into any specific supplements or anything like that right now, but certainly something to consider. And then I did allude a little bit to diet. I will say I'm a huge believer in certain aspects of diet that can make our immune system a little bit more prepared to fight tumors. And so when my patients are asking, what should I be eating? Should I do something heroic like keto or something like that? I never go there, but I think that a good source of fiber, fruit with skins, and just the different things that can make our microbiome in our gut as healthy as possible. That's the fiber component. I believe that helps to train the immune system and, makes our bodies just a little bit less permissive to cancer. So this is general advice that I try to get to everybody in my clinic.
Thank you, Major Gregory. We've got another question, which we'll get to in just a minute, Lyda, just a moment, okay? One of the things under modifiable, when I think about it as a caregiver, one of the things that we can do as a caregiver, although it's usually very hard for most caregivers to do this, is to essentially accept the help, the offers to help when they come in. And I know that most caregivers are incredibly strong and resistant and think they can handle everything. But when those offers to help come in, just say yes. And the other thing that I would suggest is, I know that sometimes when those offers come in, you are so busy, you can't really even think about what you need help with. You appreciate the offer for help, but literally trying to think about and explain how somebody could do something to help you, it just seems sometimes it's just a little too much, and it's a little, so in some times when you have some quiet time, literally write out some areas along with the information on how people can help you. So when those requests come in, you don't have to think about it, right? You've already got areas where people can help you, and you can literally just say, hey, I need some help picking up my dry cleaning. I need some help, whatever, picking up the kids. I need some help with whatever. Just say yes, and then prepare yourself to help the offer, whoever's offering to help you. That's really, really important, because I see it a lot working with caregivers, but I also know from personal experience, it's just super overwhelming, and people really do want to help. So just let them help. The other thing, Major Gregory, I think you might have touched on this before, and this is an interesting topic. There's all kinds of different feelings around this topic. I actually would really like to take a minute to explore. I think we have enough time. And that is, as from the caregiver perspective, when things really start to get hard and overwhelming, a lot of caregivers don't want to ask their healthcare provider. They don't even want to talk about it, to be honest, with their healthcare provider, but they certainly don't want to say, hey, look, I need a little something to help me sleep or to take the edge off, because it might make them appear weak, or they might be worried about how it might interfere with their actual caregiving. Can you address that?
Yeah, that's such an important element too. That's another area where, in my clinic, we're not just taking care of the patient, but I want to support the whole family. And so just please don't hesitate to raise those kinds of concerns to your oncologist. We are here to support not just the patient, and forget about the rest. So when it's sleep, when it's mood, sometimes an actual medical visit is indicated, and we're happy to, help coordinate and facilitate that as well.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a real thing, and just literally acknowledging it, I think, from a caregiver perspective, and having the guts to talk about it with your healthcare provider is probably the first step. Knowing that it's okay is the first step.
Yeah, an important point. I I noticed that in some of the, in my earlier years as a trainee, just kind of seeing in some institutions, those kinds of conversations would almost feel kind of sterilized out of the equation. We're so focused on, obviously important things, but yeah, I think this is one of the more important areas of taking care of the patient. And so I'm always open to these discussions. I'm sure your oncologist feels the same.
Thank you. Let's see. Lyda and Brian, you are on mute. You looks like you have a question for Major Gregory or a comment.
Yeah, just a couple quick comments on the SCANXIETY. Something I picked up from an online group that has really been helpful to me is this catchphrase of follow the man, not the scan. And basically the idea being don't be so obsessed about that single point of time of getting the MRI, but just be in tune with what's going on with the person and help take some of the sting out of the MRI itself, that being just a single point in time. And then as far as these modifiable things that you can do, for yourself, taking care of yourself, I also really feel like, it's kind of that don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I think it's easy just to feel like you're so consumed with your caregiving that you can't do anything, but really you can do some things. And they may be small things, it may be just with taking a walk around the block for 5 minutes, but all of those little things actually do help. And I also, I just like to think to myself, anything you do better is better than not doing it.
I love that. I actually wrote that down now. Follow the man, not the scan. That's, I really appreciate those comments.
And I quickly say something.
Thank you. Thank you, Lyda.
Oh, Brian wanted to add in. Can Brian?
Yeah, just a quick note to Major Gregory there. You're not in this conversation alone out there with just your rank. There's another one of us. I was U.S. Navy in the Gulf War, and so you probably hear the PACTAC resonating in this corner.
Thanks for joining today. Where are you at nowadays? Where are you at nowadays?
In Seattle.
You're in Seattle. Oh. Okay. Well, come say hi at JBLM if ever you need to.
Well, you're up one day a week at ID, right?
I am.
Edmonds?
Yep. Not at Edmonds. I'm actually in the Seattle Cherry Hill campus.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every Tuesday.
Yeah. My oncologist is probably going to move to the Seattle practice.
No, yeah.
That'd be Dr. Bonham.
Okay. Yep. He's great. You're in good hands.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I think I've got all the questions in the chat as well as people raising their hands. If not, please speak up before we continue. Okay, let's go.
Oh,
all right. I just have, go ahead.
Hi.
Hey.
Like Lyda and Brian, my husband and I are also part of the Ivy Swedish team. Two things as far as SCANXIETY. I guess number one is, there's if you are in a clinical setting where there's a social worker that you can meet with, talk to, etc., that's extremely helpful. Okay, because you have someone knowledgeable as far as how other patients have dealt with this, and etc. The other thing is, we have a support group, and Swedish has a neuro-oncology or glioblastoma support group, and that has been very helpful. It used to be in person. After COVID, it's been online, but that's extremely helpful because everybody gets to talk about their SCANXIETY, and we used to break up into patients and caregivers. And so the caregivers could then talk amongst themselves and express their fears where maybe they wouldn't be able to be so open with their partners because of wanting to protect them. So I think support groups, and I think having a social worker on board, I hope other clinics have those kinds of things going for them as well.
Absolutely. I just want to add, if I could, thank you for talking about the support group at the Swedish Neuroscience Institute. I am proud to tell you that the Chris Elliott Fund, now the In Brain Cancer Initiative, actually started and funded that group. And the design is actually mine in that group to separate out the patients, start together, and then separate out as a patient group and a caregiver group, because of what you said is incredibly true. You want to be able to talk freely, and sometimes we can't if we're in front of not only our loved one, our patient, but other patients as well. So I'm glad that you find that beneficial.
Exactly. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that really actually segues well into the final slides that I had put together here. You know, first, a few practical tools that I can share, and it sounds like a lot of these things are already being kind of thought about and implemented just from this conversation that I'm hearing. But at a very practical level, it's helpful to just be prepared and know where to go. If it's your first time in a system, this is one of the recommendations that came up was, just learn your way around the facility beforehand to eliminate that as a potential stressor. Dressing comfortably is a huge deal. If you're the person going into the scanner, especially, sometimes it really is just the little things like that. And, this is just resounding from this discussion. Just having that supportive partner along is just so important. So thank you to all of you that are doing that essential work in the process. Some of my favorite advice came from a guy I met named Adam. He's a blogger and an advocate and also a GBM patient. This is his blog. I have a few screenshots of him here, glioblastology. We sit on a programmatic panel together for allocating some funding, and he's just said so many insightful things that I reached out to him. I was like, what would your advice be for some of this talk? You've walked the walk and have undoubtedly faced, a lot of these scans for your glioblastoma. And one of the coolest things that he does is this scan day selfie. And this started during early on in his course, and it just stuck. And it kind of makes it a ritual, a special occasion that he shares with his partner. And the other thing that he mentioned was just having their favorite restaurant or favorite coffee place as kind of a reward for getting through the scan day. And I just thought that was really cool. Recommend spending a little bit of time on his blog if you think you would benefit from that. This is a little snippet there. Establish rituals to ground yourself in the familiar. Wrap yourself in the comfort of routine. Don't be afraid to name MRIs for the anxious events that they are. And don't forget that imaging is only one measure of health. Thank you,
That's
Adam.
cool.
Yeah.
One of the things, if I could, a comment came in that is great. Can I read it? It says, every time my husband has an MRI and oncology clinic visit, we squeeze in a trip to get breakfast or lunch while we are waiting the couple of hours for results probably from the MRI results. Getting away from the hospital helps take our minds off of it. Very good advice.
I love it. Yep. That is great advice for all. And then it sounds like we're going to get some really good exposure to this piece of it, but meditation, prayer, some different mindfulness techniques there. These are all huge, and I'm a big believer in that. So I'm loving that that's another part of the agenda for today. I just took a few shots from an app that I'm familiar with called Headspace. There's just some different tools there to help people to refocus. And I think somebody else said something similar on the call moments ago, but another tip from Adam was, just remember that the scan is a means to gain some information. It's really just a tool to kind of show something that's already happening. And so if kind of refocusing on that, it's just part of the process. Another one of my patients put in a plug for journaling. This helps her to reflect and be really deliberate with overcoming her anxieties. And frankly, it's just a nice way to stay organized. So that's just another tip that can be mentioned. And then we started to allude to this. Thank you for a few that already made the point about getting those resources. This is a part of every visit should be checking in and making sure resources are being properly accessed, like the social worker, case management. Sometimes those are just the right thing to supplement our busy visits. And yeah, go ahead.
Can you speak about case management for those that don't know what it is or are not using it? Can you talk about what that really is?
They are my best friends personally. So I'm doing a lot of telehealth, in my DOD role, seeing patients that are not physically located here. So I try to embed with the case managers especially for those cases, but in all cases, being able to just kind of sequence things out, timing, making sure we're all on the same sheet of music with getting the labs, getting the images, aligning the visits. And then there's often multiple other doctors. There's a lot of teams involved with taking good care of brain cancer. So a good case manager is worth their weight in gold, especially in my system.
Thank you.
Yep. And then, also on that vein, just remembering that formal counseling, even psychiatric support should never be stigmatized or overlooked for the right patient, for the right caregiver as well. There's no one size fits all for any of this, is kind of a theme that I think we're bringing out. So just having that open dialogue, and we'll try to help find the right support in the oncology clinic. So I know we've done some wonderful discussion. I'm so thankful for dialogue that's come out already. If anybody else has any more comments about what has helped them, I'm very appreciative so far for what's been shared.
I don't see any more hands unless I'm just not seeing it. So if anyone has any other comments or questions, please unmute yourself and speak freely, or you can put it in the chat box underneath your screen. I agree to celebrating the positive milestones. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Right. One of the things that helped me, and you've talked about it before, and I did something I never thought I'd ever do, ever. But a friend of mine asked me to do a Danskin marathon with her. So that's a triathlon, I should say. So it's a smaller scale triathlon. But I said yes because I wanted to challenge myself to become a better swimmer. And that was actually something I wanted to do for me. And this is truthfully just before my husband was diagnosed, but I continued to do it for a year after. But I think you got to find, as a caregiver, whatever it is, just those little things that you want to do for you or make you happy. I'm laughing a little bit because Wendy has her picture on her screen and she's holding up a glass of wine. If you want to have a glass of wine, have a glass of wine. Or if you want to learn about wine, learn about wine. I think what's interesting too is, as a caregiver, sometimes it becomes all about the cancer. And I think you need to remember there's all kinds of things to talk about besides the cancer. And so sometimes when you do something for yourself that you always have wanted to do, or it's something else to talk about, right? Because sometimes your loved one or your patient, sometimes they don't want to talk, sometimes they don't want to talk, but I'm sure they would like to hear interesting new conversation from their caregiver and their loved one. So, oh, yes, exactly. Lida, a sense of curiosity about the scans helps as well.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. When we all start this journey, we don't know what we're looking at, and you can learn a lot, of course, from your healthcare provider and your patient's healthcare provider, but you can learn a lot on your own as well about scans and MRIs, and honestly, different types of MRIs and what they are showing with those brain scans. There's a lot of information available just online even.
Well, and I will say that that kind of, if you're looking forward to having the discussion about what's on the scan, comparing it to the old one, going through all the different layers and everything, and kind of nerding out about, what's inside his head, then there's an aspect of looking forward to that conversation versus being anxious about it.
Yeah, I've had a very, 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 very quick and thorough reintroduction to cellular biology in this process.
We love to nerd out in the neurology clinic, so I'm with you.
Oh yeah, I could discuss microbiology and biochemistry all day long. about malignant gliomas.
I love it.
Carol says yes to new conversations outside of focusing on the disease. My husband did not want to be seen as a sick person. So exactly, right? So I know that when a diagnosis is made, such as a terminal diagnosis, so to speak, or any other diagnosis, a lot of times it just becomes the focus of every single conversation. And I don't think that's healthy. I think you have a life before with your loved one or your patient, and you need to continue to have that life and that special life. And the disease just sort of came to live at your home or wherever. It just shouldn't consume your life. So having all these different kinds of things to talk about, makes you, one, a more interesting person, but two, I think it's one of the coping skills as a caregiver is to be able to learn new things or find things interesting to talk about and then to share them with your loved one and your patient. A spiritual direction from the team's chaplain can alleviate anxiety and depression. My son made an interior journey that helped him and me as a caregiver. Great thoughts. Thank you, Richard.
Absolutely.
Is that Giles? Do you have a question?
One thing that really helped us with our stress level, there was a American Brain Tumor Association seminar a few months back, and they had a sort of a mock tumor board, and it was just extraordinary to hear how it worked, how they did it, and they were using real cases. And the reason I bring that up, it's so many people here at the Ivy. Dr. Bonham is at our next group session. He is going to be talking himself about the tumor board at Swedish. So we're really looking forward to that. Since there's so many Seattle folks here, I thought I would mention that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to have to try to sit in on that. That's a very important part of what we do. It's a big team element, and know that none of the decisions or recommendations are made lightly. A lot of deliberation goes into what we're trying to accomplish. So,
Major Gregory, can you talk about that? I mean, I've been fortunate across the United States to sit in multiple tumor boards at different brain tumor centers, and I felt like I had to sign my life away, but that is a very interesting comment, that sitting in or having a mock tumor board, I absolutely love this idea, helped alleviate stress. I think this is really an important conversation. We don't have a ton of time today, but I wanted to not forget to say, maybe that's something we could work on together, the End Brain Cancer Initiative, and yourself, of course, the Ivy Center team as well. I think it's really, really important. And I don't know if a lot of patients or caregivers ever think about that, like, wow, I wonder, wouldn't it be interesting to sit in a tumor board, or what on earth do they actually do in a tumor board meeting? I think that would be really helpful information.
I love that idea. Yeah, it's a fascinating process. It's always great to see the experts convening, and it's not just me trying to make a snap decision. A very important part of the process.
Very cool. Okay, you have some take-home points to talk about.
Yep, nothing much more than what we've already covered, but I just wanted to really help just get it out there that I think SCANXIETY is a normal part of the journey. I hope that everybody kind of comes away feeling like patients and caregivers are not alone in this. This is just something that we all walk together in. I encourage everybody to be as open as possible with your oncologist about your needs regarding all the discussions that we just went through, like understanding prognosis and any of these heavier topics. If you want to know more about how tumor board works, those are all valid things to bring up. Remember, there's a good side of that survival curve, and we're going to do everything we can to push to the good side of that celebrate those victories when we get them. And just remember being as deliberate with mindset and priorities. I think that's one way we can really take control and push through. So yeah, this has been just really awesome. I really appreciate everybody so engaging and so much good dialogue. So I do recommend, if you can, access some of these resources. Adam Hayden's name was popped up in the chat there. That's the blogger. And I just a special thanks really quick to the MD Anderson team that I did get a little bit of the content for this talk from one of my mentors there. So special thanks to that team.
Fantastic. I'm also wanted to tell you that the End Brain Cancer Initiative, part of our team, will be visiting MD Anderson on November 20th. So we're excited about that. Might have a conversation with you before that. So great. Thank you so much, Major Gregory. If our IT folks could put up Major Gregory's slide that has his contact information in it, that would be awesome. There you see there's two ways. The best ways to contact Major Gregory is, of course, email, and it looks like phone number. And that's your office phone number, correct?
Yeah. Never
Okay.
hesitate to reach out. I try to be really responsive with emails. Any questions, comments, feel free to keep in touch offline.
Thank you so much. Your presentation was amazing today, and lots of really, like you said, lots of good talk, lots of good conversation, lots of things to think about. The End Brain Cancer Initiative is also always listening for unmet need, because as we go forward and put together programming such as this one, we of course use those things we've identified as an unmet need for not only the patient but also the caregiver to think about and focus on for these types of online conversations that we have. So thank you. Is there one more slide? It was about comments and reflections.
Oh, I did. Yeah. If anybody had any more comments. And then there was, part of the MD Anderson's slideshow had a nice little poem. So I wasn't going to read it or anything. I was just going to put it up for anybody who was
If we can put that up, there it is. Awesome. So thank you, Major Gregory, so very, very much. We have a very special presentation. It will not be live. Jennifer has another commitment, but she did take time to put together her presentation for us. So right now, I'd like to introduce Jennifer St. Clair. Jennifer is with the University of Florida Health, and I've actually known Jennifer now for probably about, 8 years or so. One of the doctors that she works with, Dr. Dwayne Mitchell, is on our medical advisory board as well. And so she's a clinical social worker, specifically in the neuro-oncology space. She's also the program manager for quality of life and survivorship at University of Florida Health. She works within University of Florida Health in the College of Medicine, and specifically, again, in the Department of Neurosurgery. She received her master's in social work from UNC Chapel Hill in 2007 and became a licensed clinical social worker in 2011. She began working as a brain tumor social worker in 2012 at Duke and continued in this role at UF, University of Florida Health, relocating to Florida in 2016. Jennifer is an outspoken advocate for brain tumor patients, both pediatric patients and adult patients, as well as their caregivers and others that they love. She believes strongly that supporting the entire family system throughout treatment is a pivotal part of brain tumor care. So I think we should roll her presentation right now, if we could.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to thank you for taking the time to join me today, despite how busy I'm sure you all are. As caregivers of loved ones with brain tumors, your roles are complex, emotionally demanding, and often pretty isolating. My name is Jennifer St. Clair, and I've been a brain tumor social worker for more than 15 years. I've spent all that time working alongside families and caregivers just like you, and I've seen firsthand how vital your support is to the well-being of our patients. Today, we're going to explore a topic that many of you may already be intimately familiar with, caregiver burnout. The title of our session is Escaping Caregiver Burnout, Understanding and Managing the Challenges. And over the next 30 minutes or so, we will take a deep dive into what burnout is, how to recognize the signs, and most importantly, how to manage and even prevent it. Although being a caregiver is not easy, you are not alone. Let's start by discussing your roles and how caregiving for someone with brain cancer is unique. Next slide. As many of you already know from experience, brain cancer comes with its own set of unique challenges. Unlike some other types of cancer, brain tumors can affect not just the physical health of our loved ones, but also their cognitive abilities, their emotional regulation, their behavior, and generally their personality. Brain cancer is a relentless disease. The treatments, whether surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, clinical trials, or more often a combination of all of them, it can be exhausting for the patients and often for the caregivers too. Each day can feel incredibly unpredictable. One day your loved one may seem almost like their old self, and then the next day they might struggle to communicate or remember simple details. As caregivers, you are doing more than just helping with medical needs. You are managing appointments, administering medications, and likely helping with daily tasks like bathing, dressing, and feeding, just to name a few. On top of this, you provide emotional support in situations where emotions are often running pretty high. This level of responsibility can lead to what we all call caregiver burnout. Caring for a patient with a brain tumor is not just physically demanding, it is emotionally complex. You're witnessing significant changes in the person you love while also dealing with the grief, stress, and uncertainty that comes with that type of a diagnosis, and it's tough. Next slide. So what exactly is caregiver burnout? The simplest way to describe it is a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion that occurs when you've been caring for someone, often under highly stressful conditions, without enough breaks or without enough support. Burnout doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process that builds up over time, and it can be difficult to notice until it has really started to negatively impact your health and well-being. You might feel physically drained. You're tired even when you've had enough to sleep. That's what we call fatigue. You might notice changes in your mood, feeling more irritable, anxious, or depressed. Sometimes you may just feel a sense of hopelessness, like you can't do enough no matter how hard you try, or that you're failing in some other way. Let me assure you that these feelings are common and you're not alone in experiencing them. Mentally, burnout can leave you feeling cognitively foggy or forgetful. Things that once seemed manageable or routine now might feel very overwhelming. And emotionally, it can be a struggle to stay connected to your loved one or maintain empathy when you're running on empty. These are normal responses to an abnormal situation. Caring for someone with a serious illness is one of the toughest jobs in the world. Many of you may have already be experiencing some of these signs and symptoms, and that's okay. Acknowledging burnout really is the first step to overcoming it. Next slide. Let's talk about why burnout happens. I know you're all feeling the weight of caregiving, and it's important to understand the specific factors that contribute to the burnout in our caregivers. The first cause is long hours and emotional stress. Long hours and emotional stress, just chronic emotional stress. Remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint, and you're on duty around the clock 24/7. Even when you're not actively providing care, your mind is often racing, planning, worrying, or anticipating the next crisis. That emotional labor can be just as draining, if not more so, than the physical aspects of caring for your loved one. Then there's the unpredictability. Brain tumor care often involves managing symptoms that can change from day to day to day. For example, your loved one may be perfectly lucid in the morning, but by the afternoon, they're confused or disoriented. This constant shifting makes it really hard to relax or to plan ahead, which can wear you down emotionally and quickly. On top of that, patients with brain tumors often need incredibly complicated, complex care. You're not just a caregiver. You're also a medical manager, a personal assistant, an emotional support person, a taxi, sometimes even a financial planner. It is not uncommon for caregivers to feel overwhelmed by the sheer volume of tasks that they're suddenly facing. And then let's not forget the isolation. Many of you may have found that as your caregiving responsibilities have increased, your social life has been shrinking. Maybe it's because you don't feel like you're as available. You don't have as much expendable cash, or maybe your friends don't understand what you're going through, and it can feel like you're all alone in this. Next slide. So I want to take a moment to talk about the impact of burnout, both on you as a caregiver, but also on the patients that you care for. First, let's talk about you. Caregiver burnout can have serious effects on your health. Some of you may already be experiencing symptoms of anxiety, depression, sleep disturbance, or even chronic physical pain like back issues, headaches, or GI problems. These are common physical responses to prolonged periods of stress. Burnout can also make it hard to stay motivated, and you may start to withdraw socially or feel disconnected from things that you always used to bring you joy. For many caregivers, guilt is also playing a huge role in this. You want to be there 100% for your loved one, but when you're burnt out, it's just not possible. And that's okay, because you're human. Now let's talk about the effects of burnout on the patient. When you're exhausted as the caregiver, it's harder to focus on the details. You might miss a medication, forget an appointment. You may find it difficult to respond calmly in a tough situation. It's also possible that the general quality of care of the patient would suffer, not because you don't care, but because you're simply too worn out to give as much as you'd like. This isn't your fault. Burnout is the natural result of carrying more than you can bear over a long period of time. Again, burnout is the natural result of carrying more than you can bear over a long period of time. It's important to recognize that self-care is not selfish. In fact, taking care of yourself is essential to providing good care for your loved ones. Next slide. Now that we understand burnout, let's talk about how we can prevent and manage it. You might be thinking, but how do I take care of myself when I have so many responsibilities? And that's a fair question. And the answer lies in small, manageable steps. The first strategy is to make sure that you make self-care a priority. I know that sounds impossible right now, but if you take even 10 to 15 minutes a day for yourself, it can make a huge difference. Maybe it's going for a short walk around the block, doing some gentle stretches, calling an old friend, or simply sitting down with a cup of tea in silence. The point is to do something that replenishes your energy and your soul. Adequate sleep is also going to be critical for you. Easier said than done, right? But sleep deprivation compounds stress and it can make burnout much worse. If possible, try to establish a good sleep routine and stick to it as closely as possible. Maybe you ask a family member or a friend to step in for an evening just so you can get a full night's sleep or a few hours rest. Let's now talk about seeking support for yourself as a caregiver. Many caregivers feel like they do everything alone, but you don't have to. There are support groups out there, both in person and virtual, that provide safe spaces to share your feelings and experiences with others who understand exactly what you're going through. They're speaking your language. Counseling can also be incredibly beneficial in helping you process the intense emotions that come with caregiving. And finally, don't underestimate the value of respite care for yourself. Respite care allows you to step away for a few hours or even days while a professional caregiver or another family member takes over. Taking breaks doesn't mean you're neglecting your loved one or that you don't care. It means you're giving yourself the opportunity to recharge so that you can take the best possible care of the patient. Next slide. One of the most valuable tools in your caregiver toolbox is going to be communication. Effective communication with the healthcare providers is going to be essential. It's important to advocate not just for your loved one, but also for yourself. Don't be afraid to ask questions, request clarification, or share concerns with your medical team. You are a critical part of the care team, and your insights are invaluable. Another crucial skill you need to learn and use here is delegation. Caregiving is not a one-person job. Many of you have family members or friends who are willing to help, but they don't know how. Be specific about what you need. For example, ask someone to help with grocery shopping, ask them to go run specific errands, or ask them to spend time with the patient so that you can take a break. Folks often need for you to tell them what you need so that they can take action from there. I know it can be humbling to ask for help repeatedly, but again, this is a marathon and not a sprint. You're going to need that help. Delegating doesn't mean you're failing as a caregiver. It means you understand and take your job as a caregiver seriously. And because of that, you want to be in it for the long haul. Let's take a moment to talk about mindfulness and stress management techniques. Next slide. Mindfulness and stress management techniques can be incredibly helpful for managing burnout. Mindfulness is about being present in the moment, which can be hard when you're constantly juggling tasks and worrying about the future. But taking a few minutes each day to practice mindfulness can reduce stress significantly. And this is borne out in research as well. This might mean focusing on your breathing for a few minutes, doing a short guided meditation using an app on your phone, or even just sitting quietly and observing your surroundings, being in the moment. Breathing exercises are another powerful tool. When you're feeling overwhelmed, try this simple exercise. Breathe in deeply for a count of 4, hold for 4, and then exhale for 4. Okay. Again, you'll just breathe in deeply for a count of 4, hold for 4, and then exhale for 4. Repeat this breathing exercise for a few minutes and notice how it starts to calm your body and your mind. While it can seem daunting to find time to focus on your own well-being while being a brain tumor caregiver, you generally don't need hours to de-stress. Small, consistent actions can help you manage the demands of caregiving. You might consider setting a reminder on your phone to do some deep breathing throughout the day. Or perhaps you download an app that buzzes you when it's time to take a moment for self-care. Lots of different technology out there to help you with this. Next slide. As we've discussed, one of the most important things you can do as a caregiver is to seek out resources that can support you. There are national and local organizations that provide support specifically for the brain cancer caregiver population. For example, the American Brain Tumor Association, ABTA, and the Cancer Support Community both offer community-specific resources, including support groups, psychoeducational materials, and practice tools for managing the day-to-day caregiving tasks. There are also apps like CareZone that can help you track medication, keep notes, manage doctor's visits, and just generally stay organized. And don't forget about online forums where you can connect with other caregivers and share experiences. Many of the caregivers with whom I've worked over the years have expressed that this type of peer support was incredibly comforting and helpful to them. Next slide. To wrap things up, let's review some key takeaways. 1, caregiver burnout is real, and it can have serious consequences for both you and the person that you're caring for. But it's not inevitable. The first step is recognizing the signs and acknowledging when you need help. Self-care is essential, not just for you, but for the quality of care you provide the patient battling brain cancer. Remember to communicate with your loved one's healthcare team. Ask for help when you need it and make use of the many resources available to you. Even small changes like practicing mindfulness or taking a short break each day can make a big difference in your ability to cope with the chronic stress. No matter where you are in this process, please be kind to yourself. You are doing your best in an incredibly difficult situation. I hope you'll leave today with a renewed sense of permission to take your own care seriously and make it a priority, just as you prioritize caring for your loved ones. Next slide. So thank you again for using some of your very valuable time to take part in this important discussion. Feel free to reach out to me if you have questions about any of the information that I've provided, or if you have a specific challenge you're facing in your caregiving journey that you'd like to discuss. I have included a list of resources and source materials for this presentation that you can explore for more details on caregiver burnout in relation to brain cancer caregiving. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was fantastic. She recorded that very recently for the End Brain Cancer Initiative, and that her presentation will be posted up on our website under our caregiver resources very shortly after today's program. She's a very accomplished, experienced neuro-oncology social worker. I often go to her for questions that caregivers ask us for her help and her guidance. We do have a slide that has her contact information on it. She is open to helping, right? She's just a great resource. And she has also, that presentation will be on our website, but she also has provided other resources for us to put on our website as well. So please go to endbraincancer.org, check out our caregivers resources. They're just it's really helpful information. And she just has so much experience with caregivers and with patients with brain tumors. So she's a great resource. So thank you, Jennifer. We're thinking about you and really appreciate your presentation today. Our next speaker is Jessie Van Garsse. She is a professional coach and meditation expert. She helps people become the best versions of themselves and lives more joyful, peaceful, and fulfilling lives through her work as a professional coach. She is also a highly trained meditation teacher, and the foundation of her coaching work is creating a unique meditation practice for each client that is easy, enjoyable, and effective. Meditation is an incredibly powerful and efficient way to make profound and lasting changes to the way you feel, think, live, and show up in your life for yourself and for those around you. And it doesn't have to be tedious or complicated. Thank you. Let's learn about that. Jess has coached thousands of people with busy minds and busy lives to enjoy a regular meditation practice and improve their mental, emotional, and physical well-being. Meditation makes us much more able to handle stress, demands, and challenges with more calm, grace. It reduces anxiety and overwhelm. Those feelings we have sometimes as a caregiver? Yes. Improves sleep and gives us more capacity. It improves depression and emotional resilience. It makes us less reactive, more patient, and more present, and so much more. All this is helpful for any human being, and especially caregivers, as Jess knows this firsthand from her own caregiving journey. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jess Van Garsse, please.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
And thank you for that, that introduction and summary of the talk, and for having me here today. And I give a lot of these talks, but this one is very near and dear to my heart. So in addition to being a professional coach and meditation and mindfulness expert, I was also a caregiver for my brother while juggling a busy and high-powered career and a small child. And my meditation practices were not just helpful, but I would really say critical in that they profoundly improved the way that I experienced that time and showed up for him and everyone else. And that's a thing about meditation. It's truly the least selfish thing that we can do and really positively benefits everyone around us. And as was mentioned, There are endless benefits. There's studies coming out every day about the benefits of meditation. But some that are particularly useful to people who are in a caregiving position is the increased ability to handle stress, a lot of challenges with equanimity and calm and grace. And it's really been shown to improve anxiety and depression, help with sleep, and just giving more energy and capacity to handle whatever comes our way, and makes us more emotionally resilient and emotionally balanced, and really increases our ability just to be in the present moment. And again, as was said, these things are helpful for any human, but especially people who are caregivers. And if you're like most people, though, I probably don't have to go on about the benefits of meditation. My guess is that you already know on some level it would help you, but actually doing it is where you get stuck. So you're not alone, and that's what I'm going to help you with today. So I'd love to just get a sense from those who are here. So tell me in the chat, or jump in, what are your biggest challenges when it comes to meditating? Like what gets in your way from having a regular meditation practice? You can just put it in the chat or jump in. I don't know how you've been doing it thus far.
Time.
Not having time. Great. What else?
I wonder if, sometimes people have heard, of course, the word meditation, right? I wonder if sometimes people haven't seen it, been able to observe it, how it helps others. I wonder, you know what I mean? So it's easy to ignore.
So maybe not having the time, and then maybe not really being convinced, in terms of seeing firsthand maybe how powerful it can be. Yeah, that's a great one.
People have said it's hard to get the quiet space.
Yes. And I see, Carol, you added, allowing yourself to be still, to relax into the process. Yeah, really common. And the reason that I am smiling as you share your struggles, is that you're in the right place. And I used to feel the exact same way. I had a really, I would call it, complicated relationship with meditation, which I hear from so many clients. I knew I should be doing it. It had been recommended to me by many different people. I did see other people doing it and talking about how much it helped them. And I believed, all the studies that were always coming out about all the benefits, but I couldn't get my mind to quiet, and I had trouble finding the time, as you mentioned, and really sticking with it. And I see, Wendy, you added just, being in the habit of it, and Carol, breaking away from all the other demands and priorities. That is exactly my experience. And I struggled with it for many years. And then I worked with a coach myself, actually. And then I was able to meditate every day. I found myself looking forward to it. I started to experience such benefits that my family started calling me Jess 2.0. And, I've since taught thousands of people to integrate meditation into their lives. And I say that because they all come to me with these exact same challenges. So you're not alone. There is hope. And it's actually a lot easier than you imagine, and totally within your reach. Meditation does not have to be tedious or complicated or take up a lot of time. And it can still be one of the best, most fruitful, biggest bang for your buck ways to take care of yourself and, in turn, better take care of others. There are a lot of myths and misconceptions about meditation that get in the way of having a regular and easeful practice. And I could talk for many hours to dispel them all, but today I'm going to focus on one of the biggest, which is what you mentioned, Dellann, which is meditation takes a lot of time, meaning you have to spend a lot of time doing it, and that it takes a lot of time doing it in order to get good at it. I'm using quotation marks, good at meditation, and to see results. And so I'll dig into this and explain this and give you some ways that you can actually start to integrate this into your life. But first, I want to show you in just a few minutes how you can change the way that you feel. So if you will, close your eyes and just tune in to how you're feeling right now. Just kind of notice, how do you feel in your mind and your body? We're going to do a little before and after comparison. And we'll start with something really simple, which is put one hand on your belly and one hand on your chest. And breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. And as you do, I want you to bring the breath all the way down into the belly so that your stomach is inflating on your in-breath and deflating on your out-breath. And we tend to breathe very shallowly, so it might feel like you're forcing it a little bit. It might take some attention and intention to inflate the belly on the breath, on the in-breath, and deflate it on the out-breath. And now I want you to notice the hand that's on your chest. I want that hand to stay still, and instead the hand on your belly to be inflating and deflating. So you're really breathing into the belly, not into the chest. In and out through the nose. Then you can drop your hands, keep the eyes closed, and just let your breath return to normal. And I want you to notice what it is that you can feel right now. So maybe your feet on the floor, back against a chair. Maybe clothes rubbing against your skin. Maybe a little draft. And then bring that attention to what you can hear. So you hear the sound of my voice. What else can you hear? Maybe the sound of your own breath. Noise outside of the room or the house that you're in. And now bring that attention to what you can taste. If you don't taste anything, it's fine. You just notice the absence of taste. No need to identify what it is. It's not about what you find. It's just about the act of looking. You're just noticing, and maybe what you notice is just your mouth is a little dry, or maybe there's a bit of a metallic taste. And similarly, notice what it is that you can smell. Again, no problem if you don't smell anything. Just notice what the inside of your nostrils might feel like as you smell. And now slowly open your eyes, but keep your gaze down. Keep kind of a soft, unfocused gaze. Just kind of take in your whole visual field around you without focusing on anything. Just kind of noticing peripheral vision and everything you can see, and slowly start to bring your attention to one object. Just pick an object that's in front of you. And study it as if you were going to draw it from memory later. Or if you are not an artist, if you were to tell someone about it later who had never seen this thing before, how would you describe it? What would you commit to memory? You can look at its shape, size, color, texture. Good. You can let that go. And just 1 or 2 minutes later, check in. What did you notice? Is there anything that's shifted in you from before we began? Anybody want to share?
More relaxed.
Good.
Little less stressed.
Good. We'll take it. And these are. Were you going to say something else?
Did that process take how long?
I think that probably took about 3 minutes, I would say. Yeah. And I'm seeing a question from Susan. The challenge is brain noise it must take to practice to be able to do this correctly. Tell me a little bit more about your question, Susan.
So I think like I understand the practice, but for me, when I start to slow everything down, right? You're slowing your system down by controlling your breathing and being intentional about your movements. But then maybe it's just a female thing. I don't know. I'm like, oh, did I figure out dinner tonight? I don't know if I did do that. And then it just hops around like a little chicken. And you're like, shut up, I'm trying to meditate.
That is not a female thing. That is a human thing.
Okay.
So
well,
congratulations. You have a brain. The brain is meant to think like the heart is meant to beat. And one of the great myths of meditation is that we are supposed to get rid of our thoughts, have mastery over them, clear our minds, achieve some sort of peaceful state in order for it to be working. And that's just really not the case. It's one of the greatest myths, I would say almost the second one after what I'm talking about today in terms of that it takes a lot of time. So there are a lot of different kinds of techniques. I'll speak to that in a little bit. The biggest piece of advice, the first step is to not make wrong the fact that you have thoughts. It's perfectly normal. And whenever you notice that you're having thoughts, you just come back to, in this case, we were doing the breath. There are lots of other, or the senses, there's lots of other practices. But whatever you've set out to do in that particular meditation or mindfulness practice, you notice that you're having thoughts, and without getting frustrated or having thoughts or making it wrong, having thoughts about the thoughts or making it wrong, you just come back to what it is that the object of your attention is. And that's meditating. That is actually what meditating is like. It's a constant drifting and coming back and drifting and coming back. The gurus who sit with their legs crossed and meditate for hours on end, they're also having thoughts and coming back and having thoughts and coming back. So there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. And, these little practices are just that, little practices that you can do anytime, anywhere, and without needing to spend a lot of time doing them. As I said, that was maybe 3 minutes. I've worked with many, many, many clients, and not a single one of them came to me because they had all this extra time in their day they were looking to fill. Quite the opposite. They all felt like there just wasn't enough time in the day. And they were burned out and stressed and frazzled trying to do it all. And, balance and self-care were lovely, but, pretty laughable ideas. And so if you also don't feel like you have time to meditate, I'll ask you to consider this, that taking time to meditate is like taking time to put gas in your car. So we all know that feeling of like, you get in your car to go somewhere, you're already a little bit late, you realize you're close to empty, and you think like, I have to go to the, stop at the gas station. But of course you do it, because what ends up taking more time, either stopping to get gas or running out of gas and getting stranded on the side of the road, and having to call AAA. Another way to look at it is if you've ever watched race car driving, these cars are speeding around the track. The whole point is to go the fastest to win. But what do these drivers do? They pull over, come to a dead stop mid-race, get their tires changed so that they can then get around those curves on the track with more precision and safety and ultimately win the race. I watch over and over those very clients of mine I mentioned who didn't think they had time to meditate. Once we develop a practice that works for them and integrate it into their lives, they experience what I call the meditation time warp, which you too can experience, which is whatever time you put into meditation, you will get back manyfold. You'll experience more spaciousness and time in your life. And with that, more balance, bandwidth, never mind the ability to just be present in your life and enjoy it, but it is the most productive and the least selfish thing that you can do all day, because it truly benefits every single person that you come into contact with. If you still feel like you're struggling to find even a few minutes to close your eyes, you can do these little practices I taught you today with your eyes open. So you can just take some belly breaths, eyes open while you're on a meeting, while you're in an appointment, while you're in the car driving, while you're at the grocery store. You can just take a couple of those belly breaths, or you can come to your senses, which is the second exercise I taught you, which is just to notice, what am I seeing? What am I feeling? What am I hearing? What am I tasting? What am I smelling, right? Just checking in with your 5 senses. You can do all of that in less than a minute without having to stop what you're doing, and nobody even has to know. So you can even practice now while I keep talking. What I really encourage is that rather than thinking of meditation as something you have to carve out time to do, or have to kind of give something else up in order to do it, you can bring mindfulness practices like this to whatever you're doing. You can think of it as the ultimate efficiency hack, the ultimate multitasking, and really the only kind of multitasking that actually works and leaves you feeling better, not worse and more burned out. To what I started to say earlier, Susan, to your question, is what we did here today are just a few simple techniques, but there are many, many others. So to say you've tried meditation is like saying you've tried exercise. There are many, many different ways to move your body, and the same is true for meditation. There's many, many different methods and techniques and styles. And so it's about finding what works best for you. That's a big part of what I do as a coach, because it sometimes takes experimentation and training in different kinds of modalities to find the techniques that you actually like doing, that you look forward to, that fit into your life, and that serve your goals and what you want for your overall lives, meaning they give you the benefits that you're looking for. And I say all of that because if these 2 little mindfulness moments didn't click or resonate for you, then there's just another technique out there for you. There's no such thing as a person who just isn't cut out for meditation or just can't do it. It's just finding the right technique. So just keep trying different ones on. And then once you find techniques that actually work for you, that you like, that feel easy, you just sprinkle enough of them throughout your day and you will see benefits. And I really encourage you to not underestimate the power of these simple practices. Don't be fooled by their simplicity, their lack of fanciness. I see in my coaching clients time and time again how by integrating meditation, they're able to create profound and lasting changes in their lives that they weren't able to before. And that holds true no matter what specific life goals I might be working with them on in coaching. What I see as the theme is that mindfulness is the key to getting unstuck. It gives you increased ability to make significant changes in the way you feel and live and show up in your life. And meditation has been shown to actually change our brains, change the matter of our brains and create neuroplasticity, right? So the ability to create new positive pathways in our brain and get out of ruts and habits. And, I think of meditation like an operating system upgrade. So how your computer will tell you when there's a system upgrade available. And I'm totally guilty of ignoring that. I always push it off till later because I don't want to pause what I'm doing. It's not a convenient moment. And then my computer starts to run more slowly. Maybe a program freezes or I can't download some new software that I want. And then I upgrade my operating system and then everything just runs more efficiently and I can do a lot more. So you and everyone around you will benefit by taking a few minutes to upgrade your system, to fill up your gas tank, to change your tires. It really doesn't have to be nearly as complicated as most people think. Doesn't mean you have to give things up or find huge chunks of time. Doesn't need to be a big production. You don't need to be so precious with it. And as I said to you, Susan, you don't need to clear your mind or achieve some sort of peaceful state in order for it to be working. In fact, you're meditating for how it feels in the other 23 plus hours of the day, you're not meditating for how it feels inside your meditation. That's a great misconception. So how it is inside your meditation is actually no indication of how it's going to help you in the rest of your life. Thoughts inside your meditation are no indication of it not working. It's really about how we handle those thoughts, which is to accept them and simply to say, oh, I've been thinking, as opposed to, oh no, it's just an oh. And that shift can be really powerful in and of itself. You know, one of my clients loves to practice the techniques I taught her on the New York City subway every day. Another, we designed practices she does every time she's on Zoom calls. Another, she has a program she does every morning while she gets her kids and herself ready. So, and all three of these people are, I would say, blown away by how much more ease and space they have in their lives, how much better they show up with people around them, how much more joyful and lighthearted they feel, and everything just feels easier. It's quite simply, they feel better. And I say that because, you know, the key is just to not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and to let go of what you think meditation is supposed to look like or feel like, and just keep it really simple. So we'll open it up for Q&A and some final tips in a moment. But before we do, I just wanted to give you some possible next steps to take this further. One would be to just practice the belly breathing or the coming to your senses exercises that we did today. Again, just noticing, what am I hearing? What am I seeing? What am I feeling? What am I smelling? What am I tasting? You could set an alarm on your phone to go off 4 times a day. And whenever it does, just spend 60 seconds doing one or both of those practices. I also created a free guide with my top meditation tips, which you can download by clicking the link in the chat. Thank you so much, Elise. And then lastly, I'm offering 5 complimentary breakthrough coaching sessions with me. These are one-on-one calls where we'll spend about 30 minutes or so talking about where you are, where you want to go, some possible options for you to bridge that gap. That might include meditation and mindfulness. It often does, but there are many other ways that I work with clients. And if you're interested in working together beyond that, we can spend more time discussing that. But otherwise, I'll bless you on your way. And either way, you'll get value. And if more than 5 people are interested, I choose the 5 I feel could most benefit from our time together. So the link to apply for one of those sessions is also in the chat. Thank you very much, Elise. And I encourage you to take advantage of some free one-on-one time with me. And so with that, we can open it up to any other questions.
Hey, Jess, can you define spaciousness?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To me, spaciousness is a feeling, right? I know that most people come to me thinking like there's just not enough hours in the day, right? One of my clients described it as she has one nostril above water, you know, not just like I'm barely keeping my head above water. What happens over and over is that suddenly there just actually seems to feel like there's more time in the day. And it sounds sort of magical, this meditation time warp, but it's based, you know, it makes sense if you think about it, because some of the benefits of meditation are our sleep, the quality of our sleep improves. So we need less of it, gives us energy. It gives us like the ability to kind of focus. It gives us the ability to handle more. We feel less stressed. We feel less overwhelmed. And we're really not in our heads so much. You know, we're not like in the past, in the future, or like overthinking how to do something. And so when you peel all that away, you actually do have a lot more time in the day. Time isn't wasted in those ways. So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, good. That was certainly my experience. I mean, my life got much more demanding after I learned to meditate, and yet it felt much more like manageable. Yeah.
I'm looking, let's see here. Does anyone else have any questions for Jess? And do you see, I just want to make sure everyone sees there's 2 links in your chat box. One is for her free meditation guide, and the other one is to, I think it's a super small application, right?
Yeah, there's about 4 questions on there.
Yeah, that
just
one
helps me, you know, make sure I'll be a good fit and that, you know, I can be of service to you.
yeah, if you're interested in a free coaching session with Jess, definitely fill out the link that you see in your chat. You're probably going to have a lot of people signing up for that.
Yeah, that's why I do have to limit it. I do have to limit it. And so these questions just help me pick who I feel like I can be of most benefit to.
Yeah.
Can be helped the most.
I think this is really interesting because personally, I used to meditate, but how I was taught definitely took more time than what we experience today. So is that something that's evolving then?
As I said, there are so many different techniques. So I teach some techniques where you do sit with your eyes closed for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I teach some that are as short, and as integrated into your daily life. And to me, it's really about finding what works best for you, because what the magical style is the one that you're actually going to do every day, right? Consistency is the key. So you won't hear me say like, oh, this is the best technique. The best one is the best one for you and for your life. There are a lot of paths to the same place. So it's about finding one. And, and I think it's also about, finding one and kind of just sticking with it, right? As opposed to I think it was Jackie Chan, he said something like, I fear not the person who's practiced 1,000 kicks one time each, but the one who's practiced one kick 1,000 times. And so we can kind of do a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of this, and really just like spending the time to find a technique that works for you and then sticking with it is how you're going to get the biggest benefits over time. And it can be overwhelming. There's so many different styles out there. It's a downside of how accessible, free meditations are these days, that it can sometimes be a little overwhelming.
Absolutely. Let's see here. Somebody wrote, get out of the habit. Okay. So you were mentioning maybe set your watch 4 times a day. What if that seems like too much?
Yeah. One other way to start to integrate this into your life is to attach it to existing habits. So pick something like every time I brush my teeth, or every time I wash my hands, every time I'm driving. Something that is already a habit in your life, and it's called habit stacking. So you can kind of piggyback on that and start to make that association. And then you don't have to think about it. And again, you're already brushing your teeth, so you might as well practice mindfulness while you do it.
That makes sense.
And I suggest too, I really recommend doing these kinds of practices like preemptively, not waiting until you're super stressed or super reactive. Instead of using them like a fire blanket to try and put the fire out, you just integrate them into your life to kind of, instead of using it like a fire blanket, it's almost like you're clearing the brush away so the fires don't start. Like every time you do it, you're putting a little more gas in the tank. You have a little bit more to give, to the challenges and the demands of life. So yeah, doing it preemptively is really where you'll find the biggest immediate shift in the ease that you can feel.
Okay, so you mentioned when you're driving. I'm sorry, I think that's a bad idea.
I think coming into the present moment when you're driving and calming your nervous system, that there are certain styles of meditation I certainly say don't do while you're driving, that can put you in a very deep place and certainly require your eyes being closed. But coming into the present moment will make you a better driver in that moment. We've all had the experience of driving and you're like distracted and you're like, oh gosh, I don't even remember driving there. You weren't very present. You weren't a very good driver then. So to come into your body, to come into your senses, brings you more into presence. Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Excellent. Are there any questions for Jess or comments? I feel like there's got to be a few. Don't be shy. It's okay. This is all about learning. I really liked how you said meditation is like, upgrading your operating system. That was super key. Loved it.
Yeah. It really is a foundational practice. It's like, it really helps everything in life run more smoothly, you know, which is why I think it's one of the most useful things that, you know, sort of for people who are time limited, it's really, that's what I mean when I say it's sort of like the biggest bang for your buck to spend some time doing that, because it really does impact every aspect of life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for
You're welcome.
presentation today, your talk today. I know that I got an awful lot out of it, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. And I appreciate everyone, taking the time for yourself too.
Oh, we do have a question. Thank you.
Hi, it's Molly. I don't know how to do the chat thing, so I'm technically challenged, but could you put your put back on your website information, your contact information?
Sure. Yeah. I think that there actually is an end slide.
The other thing I thought was really interesting is you said, and maybe we can talk about this a little more, just really quick. You said it's not so much about the meditation and what you're thinking about while you're meditating or getting meditation right. It's the process. And what's important about meditation is how it basically transfers later into your life. That was fascinating. I've actually never heard about that before. Do you have any other comments that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think again that gets back to like one of the greatest myths and misconceptions about meditation, which is that we're doing it to feel better in that moment. You know, we're actually doing it to feel better in the rest of our life. You know, we're not meditating to get good at meditation. We're meditating to feel better in life. And so really breaking the connection, the association between what it feels like inside with what it's going to make you feel like outside. So you can have a meditation where you have a lot of thoughts and it's still going to help you. It's still doing something useful. And in fact, you know, the more that your mind drifts and you come back and your mind drifts and you come back, you're building a muscle, like you're strengthening your ability to come back to the present moment and get out of your thinking. So it's like, you know, using weights at a gym, right? So you're like, great, a lot of thoughts in that meditation. I just built some muscle there, you know? So it's a gift. It's a gift even.
Can you use meditation? This was actually sent to us when someone registered. Can you use meditation to sort of forget about, you know, something horrific that you keep experiencing over and over and over, like you witnessed your partner having a seizure or having multiple seizures, and, you know, they can't get that out of their mind?
Two things I'll say. One is you don't go into meditation with some sort of intention, because that's the best way to not get it, you know, like, so we don't sit down and meditate, like I'm going to meditate to like solve this problem or get this out of my head, right? And what I would say is meditation can be very effective for trauma, but that is an area where I recommend you work with a professional. I would not try and do that on your own. When there is trauma, that's when I would recommend you work with a meditation teacher or a coach, some professional. Yeah,
Great.
It can be really powerful.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Well, gosh, Jess, that was just fascinating, and really appreciate you taking your time today to help all of us, you know, use meditation to get through our lives and to make not only our life better, but of course, all of those around us. That was really key information as well. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you to Susan for finding you.
Thanks for inviting me. And I have to hop off. So have a great rest of the conference.
Have a great rest of your day. Again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so you guys have been a great audience today. I just have a few more announcements before we close out our programming for today for this session. The End Brain Cancer Initiative is actually had established a fundraising committee for the first time. It was one of our board of directors' top 5 goals this year. And so we are looking for people to join that committee. You don't have to be based, you know, where we're based. We are a national organization, so our fundraising committee needs to be national or worldwide. So if you're interested in learning more, you can contact me, Dellann, at inbraincancer.org anytime. And we have our fundraising chair actually joining us today. Hi, Carol. And so if anyone is interested, you can feel free to email me and I will pass Carol's information on to you as well to learn more. Again, I want to thank our supporters, our sponsors for this session today. Novacure and Servier are our industry sponsors, and our supporting sponsors are, of course, the End Brain Cancer Initiative, Great Purpose Productions, WIM Social, Jess Van Garsse Found Meditation, and of course, University of Florida Health. Thank you. You made it possible for us to present this presentation today, which is actually being live streamed on Facebook. And again, the enduring portions of today's presentation will be made into one long video, but it'll also be made, each presentation will be made into shorter videos, which will be distributed widely across the world. And they will also be posted onto our website. I'm going to flash up the screen again. If you would like to support the work of the End Brain Cancer Initiative, again, there's multiple ways to do that. And we are actively working on our online events and webinars for next year. Our next Join All Your Treatment Options will actually be on May 23rd, 2025. So you can register right now for that event. And of course, we'll keep you updated as we secure our keynote speaker and other supporting speakers for that particular webinar. That webinar is really important. It's different. It's not directed directly at caregivers. It's for caregivers and patients. It's also for the healthcare community. They join us and they learn quite a bit about different things. And so what we try to bring you is information from specialists in the brain tumor and brain cancer space, and sometimes the metastasized disease to the brain space. And we try to provide information that you may not be aware of, that maybe isn't available at where you or your patient are seeking your healthcare treatment for your brain tumor or your brain cancer or metastasized disease. So we try to do that. And one of the stipulations that we require for those presentations is that the presenter, the specialist, does need to offer up their contact information so that you can then have a conversation with them to see if a clinical trial makes sense for you, or if an advanced diagnostic makes sense for your patient, anything like that. So it's really all about connecting the brain tumor community, which is quite large when you think about it. So that's coming up on May 23rd, 2025. And I know that there's something else coming up. Oh, I don't have a slide for it, but on April 11th, 2025, we will be doing a patient and caregiver roundtable with a focus on primary central nervous system lymphoma. So I said lymphoma, but it's actually in the central nervous system and in the brain. And so it's really important for this patient population to learn about treatment options. But this particular focus group is to learn more from patients and from caregivers about their unmet needs. And so we'll be putting together a focus group for that. So if you're interested in learning more, please feel free to contact me, Dellann, Dellann, at endbraincancer.org. Full disclosure, we haven't determined yet if it's going to be a closed patient caregiver forum or if we're going to open it up to the public, but more on that later. It still would be very good to know your interest if it's something you'd be interested in attending. So thank you. And thank you so much for joining us today for this Caregiver Self-Care Series number 2 for 2024. Let us know again that if you have some thoughts on how we can do better when we put these events on together, let us know. Or if there's a certain topic that you would like us to cover, please let us know. Thank you so much. Again, there's some resources over there on your chat box related to Jennifer's presentation, and that will be soon posted to our caregiver resource section on our website. So thanks for joining us today, everybody. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you, the caregiver, in all of your daily work that you do. Thank you.